This is Griffin Conan.
This is Xavier Edwards.
This is Liam Hicks.
This is Dave Myers, and you're watching Fish on First live.
FOF Live is alive. We are back live streaming. Let's go. From Eli Sussman right here, founder of Fish on First. Kevin, give me a let's go.
Let's go. Let's go.
Daniel, same thing. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's get louder.
Isaac, you too.
Let's go.
And Mr. Forever Marlins, Alex Andrade, his debut on the stream. Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Isaac is very excited to be here.
Yeah. I'm trying to keep myself energized. I've had a very long day, so I was kind of fading off about half an hour before the start of the stream. So I just needed something to give myself more energy as we're streaming for the first time in a while. What took you guys so long? What took the Marlins so long to do something interesting this offseason? Finally, the impetus for a little bit of change this week. But a whole lot of topics to circle back to and to cover on this show. So our regular FOF staffers on here. It's Daniel's first stream in a while. It's great to have him back. And this is, as I mentioned, Alex's first time on the show, but he knows this organization inside and out, especially these guys on minor league side. And we're going to start here with the news that just came out yesterday around this time, exactly 25 hours ago. Protecting some notable prospects in this Marlins organization. We've been doing quite a bit of preview coverage of this on Fish on First, heading into the Rule 5 draft, which is a few weeks from now. The Marlins had to protect some eligible prospects from being available in the Rule 5 by adding them to the 40-man roster. And one of these guys is quite unlike the others, but they're all three are interesting in their own ways. We got to start with Joe Mack officially being added to the Marlins 40-man roster. This is something that we probably could have seen coming about a year and a half ago, ever since the early makings of that breakout season he had in 2024. The Marlins catcher of the future, the very near future, is now on the major league roster. So for anybody that is unfamiliar, Isaac, about the potential and the accolades that Joe Mack has already accumulated in the minors, just get them up to speed about what we think of this young man, the number 2 ranked prospect on our FOF top 30.
And the only reason he's not number 1 is because of a young man named Thomas White. He is just a really special talent from behind the dish on both sides of the plate. Joe Mack, after just a couple of injury-riddled seasons early in his pro career, has really blossomed into one of the best catching prospects in all of minor league baseball. And I expect him, along with all of us, I think we're going to see him sooner rather than later. And he has a chance to not only just be in the major leagues, but hit the ground running and overtake Ramirez and Hicks as the starting catcher at the highest level. And I just know that the Marlins executives, the Marlins brass, are extremely high on this young man, as they should be. High school catcher actually coming to fruition is pretty rare. And this young man pretty much has it all. Offensively, behind the dish, framing, throwing, catching. He can do it all, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see him in his second big league camp here in February, and then we'll most likely see him at some time no later than May, I want to say.
We have some interesting statistical context on him. This is courtesy of Prospect Savant, a site that I just found this year, putting into context. All these guys that we're going to cover, they had significant AAA experience. Max spent almost the entire season at the AAA level this past year. And as you see there, offensively, not perfect, all things considered. He is one of the younger catchers that was primarily at AAA this past season, still 22 years old, turning 23 next month. When you adjust for his inexperience and then also how well he finished the season as well, he got significantly better as the year went on. As you mentioned, a lot of this is just because as a catcher himself on the defensive side, he is exceptional. Won the minor league Gold Glove in 2024 when he was mainly at Double-A, and then this past year went probably more viral than even he did the previous year with some of the throws that he was making. where he caught a third of the base runners trying to steal against him. In this day and age in the minor leagues, that kind of caught stealing rate is elite. And then beyond that, somebody that really does it all in terms of framing and blocking and just general receiving as well. It's not a total coincidence that Jacksonville won a gazillion games this year, won a AAA national championship with him as their primary catcher. So yeah, I've got that very, very excited to see at the big leagues. I want to talk about Josh White myself. Josh White has been the guy that I personally have been kind of watching extremely closely, perhaps a little too closely than is necessary throughout the entire season. Look at all the red on that when it comes to his AAA performance. He spent half of the year in Pensacola and only half in Jacksonville, so the sample size is a little bit smaller. But this guy was as dominant as any relief pitcher in minor league baseball this year, not just the Marlins organization. And the way that hitters respond to him because of his unique arm angle is just really fascinating. As you saw in the previous pick, look at that arm angle. It's almost completely over the top in a way that I don't think any other active major league pitcher is in terms of the severity of that arm angle. It's a little Trey Savage-like for people that were watching the postseason and saw the instant success that he had as a rookie with the Blue Jays. It's essentially that extreme. And the way that his pitches move out of that is just really difficult for hitters to handle in a way that I think is going to translate pretty well to the big league level. Even if it's only average-ish velocity, the swings that he gets on his slider are pretty great. I actually want to cue those up for anybody that is not familiar with his game in the way that it looks, because I can't think of another example watching minor league ball this year about how many goofy swings he gets from opposing hitters that are just unused to the way that the ball moves coming out of his hand. All these non-competitive swings in the dirt. I just queued up like a handful of them, but this was every single night getting swings like this on stuff in the dirt just because of the weird way that his pitches move out of his hand. And yeah, Kevin, this is a guy that was number 21 on our FOF top 30. And yeah, they have some other good guys coming through this organization, but he's the one that was eligible for the Rule 5. And we were looking for this guy to debut before the end of the year. There were times towards the end of the season where the Marlins could have used extra help, especially in just the soft middle of their bullpen. And it was kind of a surprise that he didn't get his opportunity already, that he even had to wait this long to get called up or get on 40-man in the first place.
Yeah, I think he debuted on our list this past year or this last one, and he had an awesome year. And you're the one who found this guy. I want to say he was a starter originally and then moved over to the bullpen, and obviously that's been huge for him. And I mean, out of the three guys on this list that were protected, I mean, he probably has the best chance to break camp with the team and be a part of that major league bullpen right away. And they need it. They need it because overall, you look at the season, I think the Marlins had one of the worst bullpens, just ranked off of, I believe, FWAR and Fangraphs and even ERA. So just goes to show that they really needed him. And, of course, those rankings are based off of the guys who were pitching, which Sanoja was probably impacting those as well as, you know, everyone's favorite Josh Simpson. So, yeah, exactly. And but, no, he's really good. My assumptions we'll see him in the prospect game, and he'll be one of the guys who we'll see who will need to have a big spring training to make this this team. But I think I like what I saw, and yeah, he's definitely a big piece for this team moving forward. And with the amount of control that he has and all that stuff, he's gonna be here for a while.
Now we'll gotta get our guest in here, taking us through William Kempner and the year he had. This is his only year in the organization. Mack and White have been around a while as guys that were drafted and developed by the Marlins, but Kempner, they just acquired him in this itty-bitty trade in January for international bonus pool money. So what do you like about him, Alex? And what other questions does he still have to prove in order to actually help the Marlins win baseball games?
Yeah, I mean, he has only gotten a handful of games in AAA at this point in time. So as much as, I have a feeling you see this guy in spring training, he doesn't break camp. He's going to go back to Jacksonville and get to see what the consistency actually looks like going against that level of batting. I mean, his sidearm release is, I think, kind of funky, and that kind of arm side run that you get off of that, as long as he's got his release point locked in, I think that it'll play against major league bats. I don't know. He just seems like an overall, just a kind of like a sneaky, really good relief pitcher that I don't really think a lot of people have been paying attention to. But I mean, the numbers are there. I mean, dude's nasty. I mean, yeah, I think you posted like that pitch sequence the other night that it was just like, it's just gross to watch. That guy didn't stand a chance. Nobody does.
He's a thick guy. He is listed at 222. I'm going to take the over on that. He's a thick boy. Daniel, you're around a lot of football players, and he could. I don't know.
That's a D lineman that looks like.
I think so. He's pretty short. Yeah, he's pretty short though. He's only about 6 foot even, maybe 6'1". So you're kind of stuck between a linebacker and a D line sort of guy. And now I want to show up this graphic again that I use this one in particular. They had this game. Maybe it was just a few games over the course of the season in Pensacola where they used nicknames on the back of the jerseys, and his was Meat. The lore behind that is that he makes steak for himself before that's his pregame meal every single day is to cook steak for himself, whether they're at home or on the road. He finds steak and he I guess he just stir fries it. Or I gotta remember the exact story from Eric Bramer of the Pensacola Blue Wahoos, but he eats a lot of meat and he's an interesting guy. I look forward to covering him pretty soon in the big leagues. I'll just reiterate what Alex said, that he's the guy that most clearly of these three could use some more developmental time just to make sure that he's throwing strikes and getting ahead in the counts. Because really that's the only situation where he's going to find himself allowing hard contact, is if he's falling behind and letting big league hitters guess correctly in terms of what pitch is going. But he gets some nasty movement because of his sidearm release that he has. I've enjoyed checking him out and following him throughout the course of the season. The guy that clearly exceeded expectations because he was an afterthought with the Giants organization. So gotta take a look at what this 40-man roster looks like now. Mack's on there, Kempner's on there, Josh White is on there. If you do the math, they only had 2 open spots entering the day, which means Joey Weimer gets squeezed off for the time being. So I have some thoughts on that. But first, from you, Isaac, about Joey Weimer being, I think he caught everybody a little bit off guard that he was the one that got squeezed off in this process as a guy that performed pretty decently, especially defensively, when he got his shot with the Marlins late last year.
Yeah, just the fact is that he was brought in by this regime, and the fact that he did play phenomenal defense, had some sort of upside offensively. I think that made it a little bit surprising. But when I did publish that 2026 opening day roster projection, I sort of received some pushback and some jokes about Weimer being on there. So I wasn't totally surprised. Unfortunately for him, there's 2 relievers on here that do deserve 40-man roster spots to be protected, because relievers, as we know, are a lot easier to be kept or hidden away on 26-man active rosters over the course of a season. So unfortunately for him, he sort of got squeezed out a bit. I guess another person that I could have been was Dane Myers, but I think they do like him as well. They thought maybe they could get something for Dane if they choose to go that route. We know that he was dangling some trade talks during the deadline last year with a couple of teams, including the Mets and the Reds. And yeah, there were some other relievers that you could have maybe toyed with pushing off as well instead of Weimer. But all things considered, I'm not, too displeased with Weimer coming on. Like you said, he is going to be in the Marlins organization more likely than not next season.
Can I ask you? I want to ask everyone a question. Why do you think? I haven't really been in the loop as of much lately, but in terms of maybe Kepner, why do you think maybe he was selected compared to maybe other guys who look at maybe like a Matt Pushard who for America really mentioned that, as a guy, as all of the MLB Rule 5 draft as maybe the top guy that could be selected. But maybe what really had Kepner stand out, like Eli mentioned, this is a guy that they just picked up in January. They could have just let him go and it would have just really been for nothing. The other 2 guys were drafted and developed. What do you think maybe had Kepner aside from other players as well?
I think that needs to be reiterated. The fact that they traded for this guy for international pool money, because it wasn't like they it wasn't like they gave up like an actual major league or anything for him. Like they gave up money for him, like cash considerations essentially for a guy who's now on the 40-man. So that needs to be reiterated. Those, quiet moves that go under the radar. This one turned out to be really good. And I think kind of what Isaac mentioned, it's really easy to hide these guys in your bullpen. Like William Kentner is one of those guys who, still has some issues when it comes to walking guys. I think he walked like 5 per 9 in AAA or overall in the season. And you look at that's fixable. Like you could fix that, with a Kempner who I want to say is pretty young for the most part. He's 24. Like but he strikes the guys a lot. Like he strikes them out a lot. And even when he got to AAA, 7.94 walks per nine. That's a lot. So I think there's and like you could lose a Matt Pouchard. Like you're not gonna lose sleep over it because the Marlins had someone get taken last year. They had, I think it was Anderson PR get taken, and they returned him. So there's always that world where that could happen. But I feel like with someone like Kempner, I think there was a good shot if he was going to be taken, and he would have been one of the top names to be taken, honestly, with the season that he had and what he showed. And teams could hide that in a bullpen for the course of a season. So that's why I honestly, Pouchard's 27 years old or something like that. He's old as hell. So
right,
like if he gets taken, and you take your loss. But in this world now, where you are as an organization, you have so much more depth with where you were. And last year you took a ton of college pitchers, and those guys are going to move up really quickly. So you're building the depth really quickly. I think that's part of it too. And you could lose a guy like Pouchard. You could lose a guy like McCambly. I don't think McCambly gets taken, but I think you're not going to lose sleep over it. It's kind of where I want to go with it. Like it happens.
Yeah, in simpler terms, I think Kempner is much more nasty, quote unquote, than Pouchard. And just the value that you let go, like Kevin mentioned, for this player, which was just international bonus pool money instead of an undrafted free agent that I think they got Pouchard from a few years ago. He's older, Kempner's younger, and just has way more swing and miss than Pouchard. I think they're just okay with losing the 27-year-old reliever.
I enjoy that. Everybody has their own pronunciation for Matt Pouchard. I think it's Pouchard, but we'll go with Pouchard.
If he's still around,
yeah, we can ask him.
If he's back, I'll ask him.
Yeah. Now, to in all seriousness, Baseball America highlight they go very deep on the Rule 5 guys that are left unprotected. They made him the cover boy of their initial Rule 5 preview. And in my own article on our site that I put up on Tuesday morning before the protection deadline, I made my educated guess. I think he's most likely to be picked out of the Marlins guys. The graphic I was showing a moment ago. We'll do it kind of level by level because this is a really granular stuff that I think people that tune into this actually care about, but it's really granular in terms of how this all works, where these are the guys left unprotected that finished the year at AAA, for example. And so that represents most of the guys that actually matter, the ones that have, in my opinion, any sort of chance at actually getting selected in the major league phase by another team. And so there's Pouchard right in the middle there. And Zach McCambly is kind of in the same boat where he had a very successful season as well, but also a relief only sort of guy. Doesn't get quite as many strikeouts as you'd like to think, and could be available there. Jacob Berry, we'll get to him in a moment. He's among the guys on here as well. And the guy that gets cut off at the bottom, that's Andrew Pintar. And Pintar, as already been mentioned in the chat, is somebody that could definitely go as well. The consideration is which of these guys would actually be carried on a major league team for the entire year. Remember, this is the Liam Hicks situation from last year where Marlins carried Liam Hicks for the entire season. And that was kind of an anomaly. Like he was a huge success story relative to other Rule 5 guys. There are not very many like him that actually go wire to wire as a semi-useful player on a big league team when they have zero major league experience prior to that season. And in his case, they skipped AAA entirely. It's hard to guess right on these. So as a refresher, just because the Marlins might end up losing one or two of these guys, there's a chance that they come back. If they just struggle so much with their new team, then they can be returned to their previous team. And so that is a possibility. But Pouchard is the one that stuck out to me just because he's been very successful in the minors, a 3.21 career ERA in the minors. And the difference between him and Kempner, like they have like similar velocity too. It's not that this guy's a soft tosser. It's just that he's not as much of a bat misser. He's a guy that both with his fastball and his breaking balls, it's more about he's able to fill up the zone with them in a way that is a higher floor as a player, but a guy that doesn't quite give you the upside of pitching high leverage innings at the major league level. Yeah, at the same time, he could be a slight upgrade for certain teams when it comes to middle relief. And especially when you're looking at these guys that have AAA experience already, it's not as much of a leap to project what they might look like in the big leagues. Just some other quick notes on some of the lesser names on here. I believe Patrick Monteverde is eligible, even though he has one game of major league experience, because he did get squeezed off the Marlins 40-man roster during the course of the season. He is eligible to switch teams in the Rule 5. You guys are familiar with him, that he is a soft tosser, but one that has been around a while in this Marlins organization. So we'll see what happens with him. Nathan Martorella came over in the Luis Ariz trade. He was at the time considered the number 3 piece in that deal behind Dylan Head and Jacob Marcy. Safe to say at this moment, he is still considered the number 3 piece behind Dylan Head and Jacob Marcy, although he may flip that
Don't
order.
forget, Wusuk Go was there. Well, I guess Wusuk is the 4th. Yeah.
And then, Cody Morissette, one of Isaac's favorites. This was his actual second year of Rule 5 eligibility. He did not get picked last year, and but that could be slightly different this. Well, it will be the same this year. He's not going to get picked this year, but he is eligible again. He did have a better year in 2025 than 2020.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only name that, like pitchers aside, because I feel like those are pretty free game. You never know, especially McCambly and Pouchard. Like,
Right.
Pintar is a legit shot. Like, he plays all 3 outfield spots. He steals a lot of bases. When healthy, he was pretty good. Like, I don't know. I think that's a guy who could definitely get taken. Jacob Berry I would be stunned if he gets selected. I think that's one of the more high-profile names in terms of where they were selected in the draft. He was a top 10 pick, and just unfortunately has no home defensively at all. But he has a decent hit tool. I mean, if a team wants to take that, sure, but I just don't see it happening. I think of the position players, Pintar's the most likely to go of that group, and we already spoke about Pouchard and McCambly, and I guess if a team wants Monteverde, by all means, he could go to.
The name I look at, and you guys may get some giggles, and I don't think they should have protected him, but McCambly can make a team kind of decently happy. I think this is what is his 3rd year coming out of the bullpen after being developed as a starter for some reason for 3 years too long coming out of the 2020 draft. He just has that really nasty breaking ball that I think it's worth taking a flyer on if you're some capital team elsewhere. I think he's a name that, like I said, I wouldn't have protected him, obviously, but I think he's a name that you could see fly off in the later rounds of this Rule 5 draft because he, like I said, it's a reliever. He's got some decent stuff, some sort of prospect pedigree, and I think he can help some teams out.
I agree with you about that, honestly, because I think that we saw last season a lot of teams kind of struggled with having some really poor performers in their bullpen, and a guy like McCambly, he had a very good season. I mean, this is a guy who potentially, I think a lot of teams will see that he has stuff that can actually play in the big leagues and could be at least, if not a great reliever, at least a little bit better than some of the guys that are really struggling towards the bottom right now.
And it's not his fault that he was kept going out as a starter every 5th day. But since he's been moving the bullpen, he's striking out significantly more batters, striking out more than 11 per 9, striking out a lot of right-handed hitters as well. It was so blatantly clear that he was not going to work out as a starter that unfortunately it took, I guess, the previous regime a little bit longer to realize that. And yeah, I think he's a sneaky name that we could see floated around during the winter meetings.
Yeah, and just for those, like, they could only go in the 1st round. After that, I believe they can't go. I'm pretty sure is how this works. So if you are not selected within the 1st round of this draft, the Rule 5 draft, which is the major league portion of the draft,
AAA.
Then you look at like the AA names and all those guys.
The later picks.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm here, to correct you on things.
Oh, great.
So, right.
Well, there was 2 rounds.
What can I clarify? There are actually 2 rounds of the major league phase to keep in mind. That technically, if they wanted to, they could actually pick 2 separate guys in the Rule 5 in the same year. It has happened before, but usually the Marlins did it with Eliezer and Brett Graves. Am I right? Yeah. That was a bunch of years ago. That was
2018
years ago. I think that might have been the 2017 going into 2018. That was a long time ago. You're allowed to do it. It is unusual, but because it is hard.
Exactly. That's why no one cares about the 2nd round, because if you pass in the 1st one, you're going to pass in the 2nd one most likely.
Yeah. So then after the major league phase is the minor league phase, and this is harder to cover just because it's more secretive. Where the guys that are available in the minor league phase are the ones that are not put on the AAA reserve list during the course of the season. So you have 40 guys on a 40-man roster, and then you have another 38 guys that go onto the AAA reserve list at the same time. But that is not actually public to us. So we only kind of find out about that after the fact. It includes everybody that is on this current AAA roster, for example. All these guys we know they're on the reserve list. And there are some that aren't even Rule 5 eligible that may take up spots right now if they finish the year in AAA, like a Robbie Snelling or a Thomas White. And you have to make some choices there. The guys that fall through the cracks of the minor league phase, they can become a Dane Myers, for example. The Marlins got Dane Myers as a minor league Rule 5 pick because he was so overlooked by his previous organization, the Tigers. They didn't even put him on that AAA reserve list. He was way buried on their priority list, and they didn't realize that he was going to get taken. I mean, the most famous example in Marlins history of a minor league phase Rule 5 pick making good was Justin Bour. Justin Bour was way down on the Cubs pecking order, and the Marlins were able to pry him, start him in AAA, and then he debuted later on that upcoming year. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and ultimately, you don't want to dive. I don't want to spend too much time diving into it, just because realistically, guys that go in the minor league phase, the success rate of those guys turning into anything moving forward is just so low, and I don't want to squeeze too much out of that. But this is a look at some of the guys. Now, these are some names, Alex. These are some names in this organization that
Yiddy.
Yiddy Cap's got too much swag to suck, dude. I mean, he's got to be. He has to be good. I just know it.
These are players that were also Rule 5 eligible. They finished the year at the AA level. And some of them have a tiny bit of AAA experience, but most of them don't. Jesse Bergen was a guy I was keeping an eye on early in the year. He got off to a good start. He missed like 2 years of his career due to big arm injuries, but it's been pitching really well since he came back from that. It's kind of in that Matt Pichard mold where like it's not the type of swing and miss stuff that gets teams really excited. And even though he got outs down the stretch, he never even got his opportunity in Jacksonville yet. But that'd be an interesting one that I wouldn't be totally shocked at. He's kind of the one guy here that maybe sneaks up on somebody and gets that shot. But otherwise, the notable name here is Yiddy Cape. He was that number one prospect in that 2021 international signing class. He's one of the more hyped international signings in Marlins history. And it looked all right early on. He won minor league player of the year in 2022. And it just did not progress from there, either offensively or defensively. We had some even earlier this year. We can talk about it because Alex Carver is not on here to refute it. Alex Carver was getting pretty excited about Yiddy early on this year when he was repeating high A Beloit for the gazillionth time. He's putting up decent numbers.
You wanted him in the top 30, guys.
But we ultimately were disciplined. We waited for it to play out. Unfortunately, he got hurt, I believe, 2 separate times this year. He finished the year on the IL in Pensacola shortly after he got promoted. He spent a lot of this year at DH. He was either playing second base or DH and occasionally third. But this is a guy that was the initial hope is that he'd be a real long-term shortstop candidate. And it's just he has not done much either offensively or defensively to make that work. So even though he's still young, relatively, he just turned 23. So I mean, there's hope that something interesting happens there, but unless you actually watch him play, and I watch him play, and it's unfortunately, it's really unlikely that things are going to materialize. So if he sticks around, then at least the Marlins have a couple more years to try to get something going on there.
I was under the impression that he's a release candidate. If he doesn't get selected and he gets off to another slow start or wherever that may be in 2026, that I think you'll see him released before the midseason.
That it's so crazy because what was it, 2022, 23? This guy was like a top 5, top 10 prospect in our list, and we considered him the best position player prospect at one point in the system. Again, it was a really bad system, but for him to be where he was at that point, though, and to completely fall off the list, he did semi bounce back, but as Eli noted, most of it is below. He had a 107 WRC plus, but like still,
not only fall off the list. There's around 120 ball players in this system stateside anyway. He's probably top 110. It's unfathomable the drop.
Jeez, come on. That's overly hard.
Is he better than
I wouldn't go that far.
Are there 20 players that are better? I don't think so. Are there 11? I genuinely believe he's up there. It's a two. I think it was $2.3 million. Eli, was it two for the signing bonus for Yeedy?
I have it committed to memory because I'm a sicko. It was 3.5 million signing bonus.
Dude, that's like one of the higher signing bonuses too.
That's what Cal Quantrill got as a major league free agent this year.
As far as I can remember, it's the third highest international signing bonus in Marlins history. Number one, Victor Mesa, and he's kind of on that trajectory where you could say
it's Salas too.
And then Salas is number two at 3.7 million. Obviously, a lot of time on that one to see how it plays out.
Salas, he's out.
Well, I mean, again, he played in low A, so you got to give him a break. But let's see where we have him on. I think we have him like number 5 on the list.
Who's that? Salas?
Yeah,
Kevin's already out.
I'm trying to find this. Our great site takes a while to load sometimes. Where is he? He's number 6. And we started him as the best position player prospect. Mm-hmm. So
I'll start sprinkling in some of the live chat comments we're getting because a lot of people have things on their mind about VMJ. Speaking of Victor, whether VMJ will make the team this year, still too early to say. But the fact that I want to touch on something really nerdy about the Joey Wiemer thing. You guys saw early in the offseason, guys got squeezed off the roster. They got outrighted to the minors, and then they elected free agency. Valente Beozo, gone. Who are the other guys in that department that were?
Brian Navarreto, gone.
Gone. Now, Joey Wiemer, because he just got drafted, he's a relatively new professional player. He's been around since 2020. If he clears waivers, gets outrighted to the minors, the Marlins actually keep him for another year because he still needs another year of minor league service in order to be a minor league free agent, and he's never been outrighted to the minors before. So even though we mentioned before, caught us off guard a little bit that Wiemer was the one that got squeezed off right now, part of the thinking is he was one of the few guys on their roster that actually does not have the right to elect minor league free agency yet if he clears. Still a few days left until we know for sure whether or not he cleared waivers or not, but that's kind of an opportunity for Bendix to have his cake and eat it too, as they say, because even though he gets squeezed out the roster, there's as long as he clears waivers, they'll actually be able to hold on to him for another year. And it's crazier things have happened. The guys get squeezed off the 40-man. They'll still be at spring training as an NRI, and maybe he earns himself back into the equation at some point in the near future. Anyway, on VMJ, we'll have to see for now. But for the moment, because another outfielder got squeezed off, not him, that helps him out a little bit. With VMJ, it's a pretty crucial year. And we'll see. In my off-season blueprint thing, I thought he was a trade candidate just because I don't think there's a clear path to him getting regular playing time with the Marlins moving forward. But we shall see.
I mean, he'll show up on the team at some point in time, probably because of an injury. But I mean, the idea of him being like a regular starter is insane, considering how deep the outfield is right now and how little he has contributed thus far.
And left-handed hitters as well, who are, I just don't see an avenue for Victor Mesa.
Yeah, we need another left-handed for sure.
And it's unfortunate because the injuries have killed him too. That's the other side of it too. When he was healthy last year and even this year, like he was solid. Like he was a good player, and I think he's a fine fourth outfielder at this point. But yeah, and on the Wiemer end, like he did make a semi-good impression, I think, in that stint that he was here. And I know we already spoke about it, but like, he gave me like the Derek Hill vibe, and like the sense like they brought him in late into the year and he made a good impression. Like I would hope he stays around because he's good depth, and you would always like to have good depth wherever it is at any position. And I think that's what he is. And he's a nice outfield option with a lot of power. And he showed some of that power early on and in his, at the moment, Marlins tenure.
In terms about the question how much money the Marlins are going to be spending this offseason, I remain skeptical until I see otherwise, even though it makes all the sense in the world for them to be more involved in free agency than the past because of how few commitments are on the books right now. Yeah, we're going to have to see how it plays out. There's still a lot of guys available on the market. So
almost all of them are there.
JJ Bleday?
Dude.
Thank you.
How about that?
Isaac and I are working on a winter meetings like guide, and at the bottom, you'll be surprised some of the names that
There's some solid names out there.
Yeah,
Especially one, like
the Devin Williams one is already out there, so yeah, that one's one of them. And yeah, there's another one there that is very enticing. Which
about you,
I'll leave to that. I don't want to spoil it because I want people to read the thing.
Any names that were DFA that you like? I mean,
Oh,
Jason Foley, Detroit looked
what-
good.
Jake Fraley.
Yeah, Fraley.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't need it.
to bring that
God
up.
knows we
This
just said
happens
we
to
don't
be-
need.
this
Bring
happens
back
to be
Ben
the
Wright.
list- Yes, this happens to be the list of guys that were DFA'd by their previous teams yesterday in the aftermath.
Ronnie Simon's in there.
Ronnie
Come
Simon
on.
round 2.
Yeah.
Running up again.
There's
You're
Ronnie
gonna drop
Simon.
another.
Yeah,
How many
only
are
one of
there?
these guys has gone. Well, a couple. I mean, Frankie Montas is hurt and he's going to miss all of next year anyway. He's a free agent. And then Ryan Rollison, he got traded to the Braves, so they're going to turn him into an elite setup man out of nowhere, as they have done quite a few times in the past. You guys mentioned Nick Enright, who good for him to make it up to the majors. For anybody that is unfamiliar, the Marlins, he was, speaking of Rule 5 picks, the Marlins made him their Rule 5 pick 3 years ago, and he looked like a set it and forget it guy that would improve your bullpen. Just a really safe reliever that had been performing well in the upper minors. And he, like, almost immediately after the Rule 5, he gets diagnosed with cancer with I believe it was Hodgkin's lymphoma. And he has to spend most of the offseason and during spring training as well, continuing to get treatment for it. So he reached a point where he's able to return to pitching, but he just was not nearly as sharp as he used to be in the course of that 2023 season. They returned him to Cleveland. And then 2 years later, after fighting through more actual pitching injuries to his arm, he gets up to the big leagues this past year and he pitched pretty well and then got hurt again, unfortunately. I believe he did finish the year on the IL with another arm-related injury, but in a small sample, he had good success. Just a really cool story, the fact that he at least made it to the big leagues and somebody that, if he is healthy, really nice outlook. A couple of the trendy names that came up in the immediate aftermath of this move. Nathaniel Lowe, we mentioned him on the site. Louis Adio Weiss included him as a guy that made a lot of sense. He's a guy that just got squeezed out of the Red Sox plans, but did play decently well for them down the stretch of last season. And then JJ Bleday, who last year in 2024, I should say, he actually exceeded everybody's expectations, became close to an everyday player, but that was sandwiched in between pretty mediocre years with Oakland, or what the A's, I should say, in 2023. And then last year in 2025, he spent a lot of this past year in the minors. He did hit a home run against the Marlins last year that I know that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he did.
Got an interview with him as well when he was in Lone Depot for his first time back in a revenge capacity. So with
Sean Gunther's in there too. Remember Sean Gunther?
I do. And, Eli's a very generous guy. To say that his good season was sandwiched between two mediocre seasons for Bleday, those were two sub-WAR replacement level years, as well as sub-670 OPS. He is just, I was surprised he stayed on the active roster all year, or most of the year for the Athletics. It was really a tough start for this young man's major league career.
Yeah, the only other name I guess worth noting would be Toglia from the Rockies.
No, Kevin.
He's a 190 hitter.
He struck out a lot though, and like, there was a year, wasn't it like 2 years ago? It was like actually good.
Yeah, he was 2-WAR player 2 years ago, or in 24. He had like 25 home runs. He was every day for the
in Colorado.
Yeah,
he's worse than JJ Bleday, Kevin.
I'm sure.
Pretty sure in 2024, even in that good season, I don't think he averaged more than I think 23, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, he even at the time, he was getting lucky with those
you know
numbers.
what? I retract my statement.
Yeah,
they only remember him because he had 25 home runs and it was like
he hit
218. Move on. You know what? Honestly, I don't want any of these guys except Nathaniel Lowe on this list. So
Lowe,
we can kind of move on.
I think
the one that is cut off. The one that's cut off on the bottom of the screen is Christopher Morel, and I did see some people vouching for him. That's an interesting one because it's a guy that has unquestioned above average power, if not plus power. He's a right-handed hitter, and the Marlins at this moment, I think if you're forced to choose, they lean more towards righties than lefties to fill out their lineup if they could. He has versatility. I guess he's a guy that plays several different positions, not particularly good defensively at any of those positions, whether it's been second base, third base, or the corner outfield spot. So I don't know exactly where he'd fit in, but with the Marlins in this situation, if they feel like they can make a tweak and get him right, then I don't think they're worried too much. I think they just think he could contribute. But that makes you think, is he really that much better than like a Javier Sanoja type, where Sanoja it's a completely different offensive skill set, but in terms of actual value, Sanoja plays all the same positions and then some, and at least is going to get on base at an okay rate and even hit for a surprising amount of extra base hits later on towards the end of the season. It might be a little redundant to have two versatile right-handed hitters. And when you're ready, even though they bring different things to the table, Morel didn't really hit much at all when he came over to the Rays in the middle of 2024, where the power is still there occasionally, but still below average offensively overall when you take everything into account. And that's an interesting one. Certainly if it's a minor league deal, that would make all the sense in the world. But in terms of actually guaranteeing him anything, we'll see.
Nate Lowe has done nothing at any stop. That's a very interesting take.
That's a bold one.
That's a really bad take, is what it is.
I just think that if we're not going to spend money on a first baseman the way that we should spend money on a first baseman, I mean, Nate Lowe is, a pretty serviceable option. I just can't imagine it being worse than Wagaman.
Right. I do think that they, for now anyway, they are aiming a little bit higher when it comes to outside the organization options at first base. I don't think they're enamored with anything they have in-house for obvious reasons. I think you're going to look at least a major league free agent type deal or a change of position we can name a couple of options in that case. But I think for the first time in a long time, Marlins fans can actually aim a little bit higher than Nate Lowe. You might look at some of these guys for minor league free agents like Christopher Morel or the Lowe, but I think in terms of major league free agent signings, they may be able to aim a little bit higher, but below Pete Alonso, obviously. But I think in the realm of Ryan O'Hearn's and Paul Goldschmidt types, I think that's within the realm of possibility. I think it's realistic.
If you're looking, then there's O'Hearn. He was awesome. I believe he was an all-star too this past year. Like he was really good.
How long are you?
And he kept it going too in San Diego. It wasn't. I don't think it was the same exact production, but like it was still really good. And he's a guy who's really gotten to go in these last couple of years. He would make a lot of sense. He would make a lot of sense. And I know Christina's mentioned it too, and I appreciate in the comment mentioned Yandy Diaz. Like make a trade, get Yandy.
That's another more realistic option.
Dude, that would be awesome.
All in for that.
Yeah, right. Great guy too. Yes,
that would right below Pete. Unlikely though, but that's a better option than.
Yeah, if they were going to do it, I felt it would have been a lot more appropriate when Kevin, you brought this idea up at the deadline last year. If they were going to get more than an additional half season from him, in the middle of last year when they were still sort of in the race and they had such an obvious need at first base, they were going to get a little bit more club control out of him than I could have seen it coming. Now, he did sign an extension quietly before last year. That means that he's guaranteed this year, and they have another club option for 2027 with him. So it is 2 years of club control with him.
And it lines up with the Sandy one, too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, in that case.
No, I'm just saying, if it doesn't work out.
Right. I brought this up. I want to bring up this really quickly again. It was included in my offseason blueprint, but I just wanted to extrapolate on it a little bit about this idea about Augustine moving to first base, at least in a part-time capacity. And I don't get where people are coming from with that. They watch him play, right? And they know the main deficiency. What's the main deficiency that Augustine has? It's catching the ball. It's actually receiving the ball. And that is 90% of what a first baseman does. I know it's a logical progression for catchers to make from catcher to first base, and it's not as detrimental to your team if you struggle at first base than catcher, but he is going to struggle at first base if they put him there. That's the kind of the one aspect of his game that more so than anything else, just catching the ball, especially if it's not where it's supposed to be and he has to make an adjustment, that's the main vulnerability with his defense. I don't get that. And kind of from the Marlins perspective, I understand why they're being so stubborn about him as a catcher, because they're probably thinking along those lines that if they move him all the way to the bottom of the defensive spectrum and he's still a minus for them, then that's not really that much. That doesn't help as much, which is why kind of in my blueprint, realistically, I think he should be a DH for the most part. But I think his secondary position very clearly should be a corner outfield spot, particularly left field, because at left field, they don't have that particular issue. Now, the issue is that he's below average speedster. in a way that is going to prevent him from getting to certain balls. He'll probably be a bit of a liability in left field as well. But I think that has a better chance at, depending on what sort of conditioning he does, if he's going to make an adjustment to that position, then maybe his body type changes a little bit in a way that makes it not as much of an issue as you would think in terms of his range. That it's just, to me, that's a more logical fallback plan than first base. I don't understand the first base stuff when you just understanding where his particular weaknesses are as a defender. I think it'd be really ugly and frustrating at first base for people that you've seen his splits this past year and how much he performs a lot better when he's DHing compared to catcher. Like, I feel like that effect might be similar at first base if he is the one that is just missing on receiving a ball that should be an inning-ending double play, and it extends the inning and a few runs score, and things are piling on top of him. I feel like that's going to be that's a situation where I feel like he could be the scapegoat in the same way, even though it's a lower down on the defensive spectrum. There's still a lot of plays that involve a first baseman, and I just don't think that's not going to end well, in my opinion. I think he has a better chance, whatever slim chance he has of being a competent defender. I feel it's better in left field than at first base.
I did ask around about this for obvious reasons. Sorry about that, but just I did ask, and they do seem reluctant to do first base. You are right about that. I think with the Yankees organization under Rachel Malkovich, if I'm not mistaken, he did play some first base for the Tampa Tarpons, and it was really ugly. Pretty much as ugly as it is.
That's what they said too. It was really bad. Like,
yeah, so to
the point where they weren't going to do it again.
So what the dilemma they're in is the last resort would be DH, but they don't want to move a 23-year-old top hitting prospect to a full-time DH. You just don't do that. You let him try and figure out catcher. And if you can't do that, I find it hard to believe they would put him in a corner outfield spot. You don't want to just take that out of left field, no pun intended, to a young kid that's just trying to get his feet wet offensively. It might deter him in that scenario. But they are in a little bit of a pickle here. But they knew what they were getting when they acquired him. So this isn't new. They are prepared. But I do think you're going to see just a three-way tandem with Hicks maybe getting some first base between Ramirez, Mack, and Hicks behind the plate. I think he's going to catch a lot of games in 2026. Maybe 30, 40 games would be my guess.
I think that there's if you are considering that there needs to be some kind of defensive outlet for Gus, I go back and forth on this myself, but I think that where a lot of people come from when they're suggesting he goes to first base is because there's availability there. You stick him in the corner outfield, it's like, when is he going to play? There's so many outfielders that need play time, and at this point in time, easily half the bench is outfielders. So, if you want to give him consistent defensive play time, I mean, the first base seems logically like the only place to go outside of continuing to waste time behind the plate. But I mean, I think that he's just destined to be a DH personally.
Well, it depends on how you value Griff. I think Stowers and Marcy, they're going to play every single freaking day. And then you got to see a platoon availability in either corner that Griff is playing. I don't think they want to play him too much against lefties. But then you also have Dane, and you have Sanoja, and you have Ken Balderman waiting in the wing. So I just don't know if there's much room for him out there.
Potentially Heriberto Hernandez too.
Heriberto Hernandez, who was an absolute stud for the Marlins last year. Well, I very much I like that player a lot. So like I said, I think unfortunately they're just gonna take the bullet and continue to let him catch a little bit. This will be a big year for that development. If they don't see any improvement at all, then you might see something different.
And that's the other thing worth noting too. They are adamant about keeping this guy as a catcher. Like, every person we ask or brings it up, like, they want him to catch. They want him to stay there. They want him to remain a catcher. He's shown the wanting to be there to work as much as he needs to remain a catcher. Yeah, it's tough to say, all right, let's put a 23-year-old as a DH already. Like, that early in your career, like, you're going to diminish the value, and you have to hit the ball really well, like a Kyle Schwarber or Shohei, to have really good value at that position. And unfortunately, he's probably going to suck at first. And if I had to make a really good estimated guess here, or a guess, he's going to suck in the outfield too. And I just don't see it working out in the outfield. I mean, I know it's a different player, but just look at Jorge Alfaro in left field. It can't get closer to that.
And Alfaro had speed, had a hell of an arm, and he had some little, some assets out there that would make him okay outfielder, and it just
Gus just does not have them. I hate to break it to you. So it is either catcher or nothing. So yeah.
We have some breaking news to react to on Raisel Iglesias.
Oh wow!
Oh, the press release. Here we go.
Oh man.
A 1-year deal. Yeah, a little bit surprising that it's 1 year, but also
Wow,
a
just
little
one.
more than I was expecting in terms of the annual average value to get $16 million for that 1 year. The Braves, isn't it lovely to have a team that actually announces the financial particulars of their signings? That's convenient of them.
Yeah, Mariners.
Yeah, the Braves always move in silence like this, and they typically, as we've seen almost every year, the Anthopoulos era, they make a lot of moves early in the offseason as well when they like their guys. Iglesias, I cannot get out of my mind. One of the single biggest meltdowns of this entire season was this game that the Braves hosted against the D-backs, and it was like a getaway day matinee, and they must have been up like 8 or 9 runs at some point, and even going into the 9th inning, they were up by like 6 runs. They brought in Iglesias in the middle of that inning, and he continued to blow it. Where that was one of the more devastating losses that any team had all year, where they just had a monstrous lead. I think they may have taken some of their guys out of the game because they were up by so much early on, and yet the D-backs rallied back and Iglesias blew it. So he had overall his year this past year looked good on paper, but there were some really devastating things in there. It wasn't up to the same standard as some of his previous years there. So this is not a guy that I was all that keen on the Marlins going after. I don't think it's a big loss. So the Braves, I guess, are a little bit better with him than without him. But personally, yeah, I don't think this is the most efficient use of money. If I was in Atlanta's shoes, I wouldn't have been all
yeah, sorry, that's what I was going to say. $16 million for us. That concerns me because, like you mentioned, he didn't have the best seasons. And so, obviously, the other 3 guys that I believe was reported on Marlins Live that could be floated for the Marlins were Iglesias, Helsley, Finnegan, and Williams. They're all going to get somewhere around this. So that, all this talk about them getting one of these free agent relievers to really bolster that bullpen seems slightly less likely now if that's the market for late inning relievers. So we'll have to see how this goes. Maybe with Devin Williams, for example, you'd have to give him 2 years or a year and an option year. Who knows? But that's a little bit worrisome. That $16 million for 1 year of Raisel Iglesias at 35 years old.
Yeah, I mean, his second half of the season was awesome. I wrote about it because I did mention him as one of the 5 options for this team. And he just started using his fastball so much more, and he was so good. That fastball was unhittable in the second half. So if that's what Atlanta's buying in on, or that's what they're going off of at this point. And Raisel is probably just one with the highest AAV, honestly. At his age, where he's at right now, 35 years old, you got to go with the most money. And it's not like Atlanta is a terrible team either. I mean, they weren't good last year, but a lot of it was hampered by injuries. And yeah, they'll somewhat be in the race again this year, at least for a wild card spot. So he goes to a pretty good situation and somewhere where he's familiar.
You think this is the peak in terms of reliever contract? Do you think maybe this might be the most that in terms of AAV?
I think Edwin Diaz gets a little more.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Him and Robert Suarez.
Right. And I mean, in fact, when you put it that way, and people are mentioning in the comments, I think the concern is that maybe we underestimated how much relievers are going to get. If unless they view Iglesias a lot more optimistically than
well, let's not be
other people do. Then the other takeaway is that, man, maybe it will cost even more to get some of the guys that you actually do trust. That we'll have to see. What early in the offseason, another reminder is that like the deals you see at the early point in the offseason can sometimes be outliers when it comes to the rest of the market. Like it doesn't necessarily tie into other deals at the same position, especially in this case where there's some familiarity already between the player and the team. You just have to let it play out to have a better idea in terms of whether this actually is part of a trend or whether this is that outlier that actually doesn't affect other players and different situations. I don't have a great read. I'd be concerned though if it does have a connection, because I think there are certainly guys that are valued more highly. Bringing up Helsley here, Ryan Helsley is my guy in terms of the one that I thought was actually at the high end of the Marlins budget, and somebody that also I thought has incredible upside. I feel like pretty confident that he can immediately bounce back to the guy he was 2 seasons ago. I'm not worried about that late season fall off with the Mets. He's a guy that I think has higher upside than Iglesias for sure. And so now the question is it going to cost? Because the Marlins aren't going to be paying $16 million a year, even on a short-term deal. They're not going to do that for a single reliever. When I had Helsley in mind, I was thinking a couple years to get to 24 million, more like 8 to 10 million a year at most. So that's a big question moving forward. I think the relatively good news is there are a lot of interesting relievers out there. So somebody is going to kind of fall through the cracks. There's enough supply so that I don't think the demand is going to be crazy for everybody, but it really is that's a huge question in terms of how this ties into the other deals that are going to play out.
And they have a couple new ones on their 40 man if push came to shove, and they can't afford any of these. So they're not on the
And a
worst.
couple on the outside looking in with Eknes, Belgrave too.
Yeah, Andrew Chafin is always available as well because they need lefty relievers, man. This is ridiculous. They need a left-handed reliever. They cannot count on Cade Gibson all year long next year. There's no more Veneziano.
Eli mentioned
a lot of
Andrew Nardi coming back this year. I just know it. I feel it in my bones.
Get ready for Friday, bud.
What a transition, because that is one of the last things I want to make sure to get to on this pod. The likelihood that there's going to be more roster moves this Friday. Friday is the tender deadline for the Marlins, for every team.
Perfect segue.
Yeah, it applies to anybody that is either pre-arbitration eligible or ARB eligible. And it's really the ARB guys that are more significant. Those are the guys that are projected for a certain amount of money if the teams retain them. The Marlins have a relatively small ARB class this year. There it is from MLB Trade Rumors with their projections for it. Edward Cabrera is the big earner there, and then even him at $3.7 million. The fact that he was able to finish the year healthy is a no-brainer for them. And most of these are no-brainers. The biggest question mark of all is Andrew Nardi, who we've seen Christina Dinocolo report was likely to get non-tendered. But that has not happened yet. So there's still a few days to find out whether or not that does happen one way or the other. It's because he didn't pitch last year at all. He's barely going to make the league minimum if they retain him. The question is, do they feel his back injury is debilitating enough that he's just not going to be usable moving forward? It was a very vague injury this past year to his back that started even before spring training and went all the way through the year that prevented him from pitching in a way that we'll find out in a couple of days for sure what they're going to do with him. But that's another way to the 40-man roster is filled right now. And we were just talking a moment ago about free agent possibilities. If they do sign any big league free agents, they got to squeeze somebody else off this 40-man. And Nardi, if they feel that back injury is career altering, then they could squeeze him off. And I know that Isaac, you've kind of contemplated what's going to happen with Braxton Garrett, where that's another one that's relatively cheap. He's going to earn the same amount of money he did this past year, just $1.5 million, but it's his second career Tommy John surgery. And he missed most of the previous year, even before undergoing the surgery. So the question is, on a team that has a lot of rotation depth, we don't know for sure whether or not they're going to hold on to him, just given the questions about how much of a workload he can actually handle in 2026.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. That's the name that I would circle here as someone to not be totally surprised for taking off guard if he is, in fact, non-tendered. He's been with the organization since 2016 as a former first-round draft pick, one of the nicest guys in Marlins history, honestly, one of the great guys from Alabama. And unfortunately, like Eli mentioned, he did undergo his second Tommy John surgery. And I've just not heard his name be mentioned in future plans at all. It's been a really, I don't want to say sketchy, but it's just been an unclear rehab progression for him. I've not heard his name at all over the last 2 months of the regular season and going into today. I just failed to hear much positive about him, if anything at all. Which is a shame because he had that really nice year in 2023 and he started a playoff game for the Miami Marlins in 23. So it would be tough. One of the longer tenured guys in the organization, just given that he's 4 regimes back. I just wouldn't be surprised. And like Eli mentioned, even if he does pitch Major League Baseball in 2026, what can they realistically expect? How many innings do they expect him to throw in the big leagues? Just seems like a perfect opportunity for the Marlins to maybe shave a little bit of $1.53 million off the books. because I don't think they're expecting much from him. So I guess I just wouldn't be surprised if Brax is non-tendered.
The Nardi one is so weird because I just looked it up. He has 3 minor league options, and it's $800K. Tender it. Like, let's see what happens, right? If he comes back and he looks good, throw him on the opening day roster. It's another lefty reliever. Worst comes to worst, you option him to AAA. You let him work through whatever he needs to work through, and whenever he's ready or he's doing well, you call him up. But I also see the other side of it. Obviously, went through a back injury, and similar to what Isaac was saying, we did not hear anything about Andrew Nardi, like little to nothing. He was there, but he really wasn't until the last 2 weeks of the season, maybe. I don't even think he was in the building at all. But it was really vague injury updates on Nardi. There's never anything really concrete of progression, and all of it for a back injury. So it really, the question, like, it's just like you could tender him the contract because it's $800K, and he's probably going to be one of the least paid players on the team, at least on the 40-man. So do it, right? But at the same time, I wouldn't be shocked if they do non-tender him. And that is the expectation, that they're going to non-tender him. And like they did with Tinoco, they did with Nardi, but they kept Nardi on for a bit longer. So it does, bring up the question if they're actually just going to tender him the contract and see what they've got, because it's another lefty option who had a really nice 2023. It's starting to look like an anomaly, unfortunately, but who knows? Maybe he bounces back and has a solid 25, and it's all of that for $800K. It's not even $1 million. But again, they traded Jake Berger, who wasn't even making $1 million. But different situation, obviously.
Yeah, so I have a very minor update on Nardi, which is that he was participating in this event that Jake Berger put on for his Jake Berger's foundation. That required, like, I don't know if they actually played a game, any sort of like scrimmage thing, but he assembled a bunch of professional players for what they called the Lucky Classic. And Nardi was there, and he was in a uniform. I don't know if he
did. You see those uniforms, Eli? They weren't even baseball uniforms.
It was more of a home run. Bryce Harper played in it. A couple of other prominent names played in it.
I'm pretty sure Nathaniel Lowe was there too.
A lot of guys were there. A great event for a great cause. Our guy Berger, best of luck to him. So Nardi was there. Oh, I just found, is that another picture of him? Yeah, he's in good spirits. But
so is Braxton Garrett. He just got married. That's your other update.
I don't think he was throwing 95 miles per hour at this event, even though it was at a baseball field, and even though he was in a jersey. So it's we'll find out. So that's just a couple days away between these moves, and more so we're keeping an eye on across the league. All these teams have higher profile non-tender candidates that will add even more to the free agency pool, depending on how much they're projected to get and whether those teams are going to pay them. So we had an appetizer yesterday with the guys getting DFA'd, but there are going to be bigger names that are going to hit the free agent market by Friday across the league for the Marlins to consider. You want to do a quick prediction time on our way out?
Ooh,
yes.
I got a little idea.
This is prediction time.
I think we're going to win a lot of games, a lot more games than you think we're going to win this year.
Hey, slow down. You don't even know who's on the team yet, Bruce. Relax.
Josh Simpson.
Let's start the show off talking about the guys that were protected from the Rule 5 and selected on the Marlins 40-man roster. It was Joe Mack, Josh White, William Kempner. So I felt for prediction time, we can make way too early predictions. Which of them is going to make their major league debut first? They're all on the 40-man. They're all going to be in major league spring training. None of them have any big league experience yet. But which one of them do we think is going to be the first one that gets their shot on whether presumably with the Marlins, but just making their major league debut first? So that's what I want to do for prediction time this time around. Just picking from one of those three. Which one of them do you think gets up first? And we're still a while away from the call-up contest. That'll get us even more invested in their particular debuts, depending on who we go with there. But we'll start this off. I'll get the music going. Kevin is our usual leadoff guy, so that will continue right here.
I'm going to go with Josh White. I think their roster bearing injuries or really bad performances, and he really dominated last year. Nothing else to prove. he'll make he'll be the first one called up, or quote unquote make his debut.
Okay, Mr. Daniel, your selection out of this trio.
I think the easy money would be Josh White, but I'm not going to go for the easy money. I'm going to go with Joe Mack. If you put him on the main roster, instantly becomes the best catcher, not just offensively, but maybe also defensively as well. So I think Joe Mack will be the first debut out of those three names.
Okay, Isaac Azut, your prediction, sir.
Joe Mack is going to hit 4 Grapefruit League home runs, forcing himself to be a call-up candidate in late April. Joe Mack first.
Okay, you see how this works, Alex. Now give us your prediction.
Yeah, I think that Josh White feels like the obvious choice. They're going to want to do service time manipulation with Joe Mack, and I think William Kempner just needs to prove himself more in AAA, but Josh White has nothing left to prove.
I'm going to go with Joe Mack. I'll go with Mack here. I'm a proponent of him starting the year on the Marlins roster. I got a feeling the Marlins won't quite do that, but at the same time, there's a lot of volatility when it comes to rookie pitchers and when exactly they're going to break through. So I'm very optimistic about all three of these guys moving forward and how they're going to impact the team in a positive way as soon as they do get called up. But I think if he doesn't make the opening day roster, I think he's going to be knocking on the door as soon as that invisible deadline passes during the second week of April. He's going to be up soon and get a shot right there. I'll go with Joe Mack taking over the Marlins catcher position, hopefully for many years to come. The return of Fish on First Live from Eli, Kevin, Daniel, Isaac, and Alex, aka Forever Marlins. Thanks everybody for tuning in and checking us out. Some of our regulars, including Thomas Joseph and PJ, LMF, MJS as well. Oh, I missed this comment reminding us. Jesus Sanchez with the Astros. He had a pretty slow finish to the year, and he's due yet another raise. Maybe Sanchi is back on the market as well. So that's just one example, guys, that we're going to be following towards the end of this week. And we will let you know the next time that we're doing a stream. And we've made a habit at the end of the regular season to post all these on our podcast feed as well. So we'll be doing that here yet again. For anybody that missed the stream live, you can follow and subscribe to Fish on First wherever you get your podcasts and listen to all our same talk right here. So a whole lot more to come throughout the course of this off season. Winter meeting is just 2.5 weeks away, and we're going to have in-person coverage of that as well. So thanks everybody for the support. You can continue to shop our merch at aboutthefans.com. You could support us as a super sub directly on fishonfirst.com to help us cover the team as intimately as we do all year round. So thanks again for tuning in. And as always, go Fish. Fish on First Live is presented by About the Fans. We've partnered with them this season on a brand new merchandise collection featuring t-shirts, polos, hats, and other accessories that Marlins fans will absolutely love. Head on over to aboutthefans.com to shop the FOF collection. Use our special coupon code FOF10 to save 10% off your order. Enter code FOF10 at checkout to save 10% and continue supporting what we do over here.